Hello, welcome to the Bigger Truth Podcast. I'm Scott McMahon, and we've got a really important show, I think, today. And it's been fascinating to me how much resistance I've had already. And we've got comments already saying that I'm wrong for having Shelley on the show. And I've had I even had a state legislator call me last night saying that I was wrong to have her on the show. And part of what I've been doing all along is giving people a voice who didn't have one. And so I want to quickly, before I bring Shelley on, I want to quickly summarize the research that I've done, because I think that it's very likely that a lot of people just aren't familiar with the whole scope of it. So I want to try to do that in about 5 minutes. It started, so I'm a small town journalist, small town Michigan, conservative town. Friend of mine was starting a newspaper because the paper in the town was owned by big city Democrats, and it's a conservative town. And I've been wanting to get into journalism for a long time. I've been a real estate broker. And so around October of last year, I started writing full time for local paper, just doing local paper kind of stuff, sometimes state issues. In December, I started covering the division within the Republican Party. Crazy things that were happening and being said, complete different stories from both sides, which really fascinated me, because throughout history, when those kinds of things happen, when there's two different sides that are polar opposites, but they're saying the exact same thing about each other, they both can't be right. So I really looked, I started researching it deeply, and the deeper I got, the more I realized it was going to take a lot of time. So in January, I took a leave of absence for what I thought was going to be 2 weeks. And now here we are 4 months later, and I'm still doing this full time. What I found is this. I had 5 whistleblowers come forward in Michigan that described a shadow operator named Mike Labadie, who was behind Christina Caramo. And Christina Caramo was the so-called grassroots leader of the party. She had become the state chair. And what I learned is that he was a registered Democrat in just a few weeks before the election of Trump in 2016. He registered as a Democrat in California. He then moved to Michigan, and immediately in early 2017, he got involved with the Republican Party. He claims to people, as he introduces himself, that he has ties to the intelligence community, and that he wants to use what he learned from them against them because they're the bad guys, and that he wants to take down the deep state and save the country for future generations. And so he's using very kind of what would probably be considered far right language, but even more than that, he was using Bible verses, but very specific ones, in order to convince people that they're in a holy war, that God is on their side, and that there's enemies all around them. And so he would select scripture that would promote those ideas, and also a sense of duty and that kind of thing. So as I I exposed that, and I continue to expose what was happening in Michigan. What happened, the result of all of this, was Mike Labadie became the de facto shadow controller of the Michigan Republican Party, and they ran it to the ground. There are all kinds of financial problems. They stopped raising money. Sigai, if you're going to continue just post shotgun style, I'm going to block you just because it's distracting. So you're welcome to post comments, but I'm just kind of letting you know. And anyone, I really do want your comments and questions, but give me a chance here. So we're what I discovered as a result of this is that the party was really in shambles. It was not just divided, it was bankrupt, and it had no plan. There was no get out the vote. There was no plan towards winning in November. They said that they did, but they didn't. And the division that resulted from all that was it has really harmed the party. And I've since discovered, I've been researching, I put out a report about a month ago on 5 states, Washington, Idaho, South Carolina, and Arizona. And I've been looking into Arizona. I grew up in Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 28 years, so it's near and dear to my heart. And I've taken a special interest in Arizona. And the situation in Arizona is very complex. I've been exposing the disruptors in Arizona, and especially in Maricopa County, and that's really where my focus has been, because 2/3 of the voters in Arizona are in Maricopa County, and that's also where there is the most. The Maricopa County Republican Committee (MCRC) is just in shambles. But I've been talking with Shelley on the recommendation of several people that I've come to really trust, because their understanding of what's happening, not just in Maricopa County, but throughout the state and even nationwide, is really on point and aligned with the research that I've done. What I've found is that they use these disruptors. They call themselves America First. And there's nothing wrong with America First. In my view, every conservative is America First, in the sense that every conservative thinks that, our government should put the interests of American people first. And I think that's a pretty universal thing. And it's a unifying understanding. But the disruptors use America First as a dividing principle. They say that they are America First and everyone else is not. And they tend to target the people who are the most experienced and knowledgeable in the party, and the most effective. And this is, and there's the leaders of the organization, and then there's the followers. And the followers are just misled. They're not provided access to all sides of the story. There's a lot of effort put into silencing and preventing people from hearing all sides of the story. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. So with that, I'm going to bring on Shelley, and I am so glad that you're here. Shelley was the chair of the Pima Republican Party until a little over a year ago, correct?
Yep, 17 months.
So when were you first elected? And let's just start kind of at the beginning. First, before we go, I just want to, I do want to post a couple comments here. So Segal Smader says, Scott, you've gotten certain things wrong. Ferentz, Daniels, Harris, Bush, Berland, Bob Gomez are disruptors. Pima grassroots is not of that ilk. We are against them. Kais is establishment. Held us back. Okay, so let's focus on what we agree on, and let's give Shelley the opportunity to tell her story. So that's kind of there's a lot of accusations, and what I've found is that there are just a lot of people that really, really don't want to hear.
So yeah, well, that's interesting. First off, Scott, thank you very much for having me on. I'm really, really proud of the work you're doing, and I appreciate so much all the work that you are doing. We definitely need to have someone like you working to identify issues. You're like a great big Republican National Committee organizational development specialist, and you're identifying issues and things that we can do to make things better. The first comment that you just got, calling me establishment, a rhino, I mean, you can call me anything you want. The bottom line is that I was the chairman from December 19th, 23. And I think those were a really exciting 2 years. And when it started, I actually had an opponent when I ran for chairman. And it was certainly an interesting race. My opponent had been involved in Republican politics as a candidate, I believe he was an LD chair. So, he was a great opponent. It was interesting, though, because it immediately divided what was going to be in the next 2 years. And I was in, at the time, what's called Legislative District 2. And because it was the whole COVID thing, I will give huge kudos to then Chairman David Eppiheimer and Executive Director Bobby Joe King. They hosted a virtual statutory meeting. We met within our LDs and we were connected virtually. And I think they probably used Zoom or something. And they did a really good job. I was at the LD2, as was the other candidate for the other candidate for chairman. And it was interesting because even before the meeting started, the chairman of that group, Kathleen Wisnick, and I think the first vice chair, Eileen Wilson, walked around with a sheet of paper saying, vote for these candidates. And some of the candidates that were on that sheet had not even announced that they were candidates. They were going to be recommended from the floor, nominated from the floor. And so we hadn't even started yet. This was like at quarter to 9. And so by the time the meeting began, Mary Preble, who was our facilitator, actually already had ballots with people's names who were going to be nominated from the floor. So that was kind of an interesting way to start the day. But I did win, and I won by 15 percentage points. Within today's election cycle, 15 percentage points would almost be a landslide. Mm-hmm. So we started, and it was a really exciting time. It was right around Christmas, and so some of the board members I had never met, some of the newly elected board members. And so I took time during that period to meet with each one individually and talked about their goals. One person that I met with, I actually met with her for 6 hours, talking about what her goals were for the party. So it was really an exciting time, I thought. And we started out, we had our retreat on January 16th. And when I ran, my campaign promise was built on 3 things. Build the Pima County Republican Party. And I think I sent you a slide deck that you're going to put in your show notes. And I think that's actually up there. I'm going to kind of break this down to the first 100 days, the honeymoon, surviving under fire, and now behold the truth, provide the proof. And I got that from a former Air Force bombs person. So I think that's just a great saying, behold the truth, but you have to provide the proof. So if you look at the next slide that shows just what was the campaign promise? What did I say I would do? And they're listed right there. I said I'd build the Pima County Republican Party by increasing PCs, by adding training programs, by increasing the donor base, by creating events, increasing visibility in the media, evaluating our current structure, and also requiring transparency and accountability. We are able to show that we did all of those things. And also to bring out the closet Trump voters. At that time, there were, everybody was so sad. It was, Trump had lost. We felt like the election had been stolen. People were angry. They were disappointed. It was almost like we didn't know what to do next. But here's what we did know. We knew 209,000 people in Pima County had voted for President Trump. And so we needed to bring those folks together. And we also have a very strong Latin community, Latino community, Hispanic community here in Pima County. And we needed to bring those folks into the conservative fold because they are conservative. And then I wanted to empower and recognize people who had done and continued to do the heavy lifting of the party. So that's what I campaigned on. And the website that I had when I was the candidate was redrootsaz.org. And you can go to that website and see what I brought to the table. Now, one of the things that I think is important is in that election, I announced that I had commitments of about, I think at the time of the election, it was about $13,000, but I had commitment, I got more commitments for financial donations. And these commitments were not from the people that you would think. This wasn't from the establishment. These commitments were from people who had worked with me in the past and said, you know what, yeah, if you're going to do this, we're with you. So I announced that I would be bringing money in, which was important because the party didn't have a lot of money. And we had just come off a presidential election. So that was really important. Now, if you'd show the next slide, this is why making a campaign promise means that you have to deliver. And if you look here, this slide shows how much money was raised in these cycles. Now, if you look at the cycle in 2011 to 2012, notice that cycle and the let's see, the red cycles are I did red and blue because the blue is an off presidential year. Now, everybody, we all know we need money. And here we are in the Republican Party, the Arizona Republican Party. We need to raise money. We need to donate to our candidates for sure, but we also need to donate to our party. And so you'll notice here, though, that in 2011 and 12, they raised $320,000. Now, for anyone who is the past chairman or of any LD or the AZGOP or a former chairman for PEMA, you know that raising money is a tough job. And when you see a big number like that, you think, wow, how did they do that? Well, I'm going to tell you in just a minute how they did that. Well, I'll tell you now.
I just want to interject really quickly, just in case someone can't, if you're watching this on your phone, you can't see they're going from left to right here on this chart. And I'm going to post this slide deck and links, and everything that we talk about is going to be on biggertruth.substack.com. It'll be tonight because right after this podcast, I have to go see Trump. He's going to be in Michigan. And
you're so lucky. You're making us jealous.
So I don't know. I have advanced tickets, so I don't know that I'll actually meet him, but I'm going with some other people, so it'll be great. But this will be, so this will be on the Substack. And if you could, if you could please support me, I would really appreciate it. All of my support, Brian Ferentz put out a thing saying I've got dark money support. All of my support financially comes from my readers and viewers. So I would really appreciate your support by becoming a member for $5 a month on my website. So on my Substack. So left to right here, if you can't read it because the print is kind of small, 2011-12 is this large bar, and that's $320,000 that was raised in that presidential cycle. So
yes, but now I'll be showing you something about that though in just a minute. When you go all the way to the right, so there's 2013, and the bar on the far right is the amount of money that we raised during the 21-22, a non-presidential cycle. Now, generally in a presidential cycle, you'll raise more money. Right. But I think what is important to understand about this 320,000, 110,500 of that came from the Arizona Republican Party. So if you go to the next slide, what that means is that in 2021 and 2022, Pima County raised more money than they had in the last 14 years. Mm-hmm. So we were very successful at fundraising. Now, I know a lot of people have said, oh, well, you were successful because all the establishment gave you money. Actually, they didn't. If you would go back to see the money and look at the donors in 1920, and then look at the donors in 21-22, you would see that the establishment did not give money. In September or October of 22, we did receive what people would term some establishment money, but it was earmarked to get out the vote. So we were not funded. We were funded by, and now I'm going to go back and Scott, if you could go back a slide, you'll notice the dotted line here. One of the measures of success of our party is the number of donors that we have. And so this dotted line is the number of donors. And you'll notice that in 21-22, we had 499 individual donors. Now, many of those people gave multiple times. This is just 499 people invested in the Pima County Republican Party. And that was exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really exciting thing. And that's what we want to see now. Moving forward, we want to see people investing in the ACGOP. We want to see people investing in all of the county parties. I know my colleague down from Santa Cruz County, Steve McEwen, you had him on your show. He's building the party and just in huge numbers down there. And that's really exciting. So individual investors in the party is very important. So there were two things that happened. So when you look here, for the first time, these numbers in the middle, and when you get these slides, when you can pull them up on your computer, if you're on your phone right now, you're not going to be able to see these. But when you're able to pull them up on your computer, you'll get a good understanding. For the first time in 14 years, the Arizona Republican Party did not give the county parties any money. And you'll notice, like in in 11 and 12, they got 110,000 from the AZRP. That's a lot of money. But you notice that money started dwindling. Well, okay, so we understand that. So we get to 21, 22. We realize the party isn't going to give us any funding. And that's okay, because as you can see, we were able to raise a lot of money. Yeah. And we were able to do it with individual contributors. And so let's take the money and put the money aside for a minute. And let's just focus on the people. Because one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to empower PCs. I wanted to empower the donors or the contributors or the investors, whatever you wanted to call them, to encourage them to get involved in the party, get involved in what we were doing. So, and in addition to that, we wanted to get involved with the voters. This 209,000 people, we needed to get involved with them. And then the candidates. And we were really fortunate in the 22 cycle to have amazing candidates. We could start right up at whether it was LD 16, 17, 18. In 18, we had Stan Kane was an amazing candidate. And Linda Evans was a passionate candidate. In 19, we have Representatives Griffin and Diaz, as well as Senator Gowan. They don't live in Pima County, but they represent a piece of Pima County, and so we're very fortunate to have them as well. And in 21, I think one of the gems of Arizona, Deborah McEwen, did not get elected, but she was absolutely a brilliant candidate, as well as Damian Kennedy. Damian Kennedy is the guy you always want to have on your team, because he's the one that finds the mistakes and finds the errors. Now, let me go back up to 17, because in 17, we did get 3 candidates elected. We elected the state senator and both representatives. Rachel Jones was a very passionate candidate, and a passionate legislator. Corey McGarr is just a likable guy. Justine Watsack, an activist, was elected. Now, why is this important? It's important because we have legislators in Pima County. We were able to work to get those folks elected. And then our real star was Michelle Pena from LD 23. Now, we only have a piece of LD 23, but we got Michelle Pena elected. We helped Yuma County get her elected. And you know what? I say that Yuma County and LD 23 and that little piece from Pima, Michelle Pena saved our Arizona legislature, our Arizona House. She was our 31st vote. That was a big issue to get that 31st vote. So all of that, when we look at the money we were able to raise, when we look at the individual investors in our party, and then another thing that was really exciting for us, if you'd go to the next slide, let's talk about our PCs for just a minute. Our PCs are amazing. And they are, you can call them grassroots, you can call them, you know what, I don't care what you call them. Call them grassroots, call them establishment, call them rhinos, call them anything you want. But the ones that are reaching out and touching their 125, the ones that are knocking on doors, the ones that are making the phone calls, that are mailing the mailers, the ones that are working. I'm in a precinct, and my precinct has a meeting every other month. There's 24 of us. We meet every other month. Now we meet for about an hour to 90 minutes, and then we all go out to dinner together. You've got to build that camaraderie. And I am so excited to be a member of Precinct 84, where we have that. But if you look at our numbers, this is kind of moving, and those numbers are really small. But you can see in 2018 and 20, we only had 179 elected precinct committeemen. But in October of 22, we had 630 elected precinct committeemen. We had 99 additional PCs that were in the wings, either through the process or being appointed. So when we left on January 7th, we were so excited to leave as part of this team of 729 people, the largest number in the last 15 years in Pima County. We were so proud to have been part of that, to make that happen. And it took everybody in Pima County, no matter what you called yourself, whether you wanted to be a grassroots or an establishment, and that's what it's going to take in Arizona. So I've just given you a bunch of data, Scott. And so I'm going to ask, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's amazing. First of all, that you doubled the number of elected PCs.
Yes, we did.
And that's just extraordinary. And,
yeah.
I've noted that my phone was just blowing up yesterday with people pleading with me not to have you on this, on my show. And their arguments were that you are, that you're disruptive, that you're divisive, that, and that the party's better without you. I had a state legislator call me last night, and she actually called you the Queen of Evil. Actually, she said the effing Queen of Evil, and that they got rid of you and all of the establishment. Everybody in Maricopa County actually believes that Pima County is very unified now, and I suspect. I mean, is it possible that they have the appearance of being unified because they've gotten rid of everybody that stood up against them?
Well, let me just say this. First off, no one on the board that I served with chose to run because of the attacks. The attacks are pretty tough. And the fact that anyone who is serving in our legislature in Arizona would call a media person and call the former chairman an effing Queen of Evil is kind of interesting. So that's an issue. I just want to say that everyone that served on this board, whether our first vice chair was Nolan Reedhead, he's an attorney, amazing, and just very helpful. Anna Clark, our second vice chair, absolutely amazing. Get things done. We had 2 Lincoln Day dinners, Scott. The first one in 21. We had everyone. We had Kelly Ward, our chairman. We had President Karen Fann, president of the Senate. We had Congressman Andy Biggs. We had, I mean, you just go down the slate of the who's who in Arizona politics. They were all at our Lincoln Day dinner, and our guest speaker was Steve Bannon, and we sold out. We had 500, and this is still kind of COVID time. We had 500 people. It was such an exciting evening. And I will say, the keynote speech was a history lesson that I found absolutely amazing. And I mean, just looking at the importance of Lincoln, because we call it a Lincoln Day dinner, and what was going on when President Lincoln was serving, and his need for the silver that Arizona was mining. I mean, that was a, you know, once we get past the election and we've won all of our races, let's sometime talk about that, because that was just a great history lesson. But we had two very successful Lincoln Day dinners. And Anna was such a hard worker in getting events. We had a picnic one time. We had over 200 people. The Ramada was absolutely filled. It was organized so well. We had so many people. It gave a lot of our statewide candidates came down because, remember, they were all running and they wanted to be there to be able to meet with so many PCs, activists, voters. We had a campaign kickoff. We had a campaign school that was sold out. As a matter of fact, some of our legislators from LD17 attended our campaign school, where we had the Leadership Academy from Washington, D.C. come in and teach us how to run a campaign. It was an all-day school, very, very well attended. As a matter of fact, sold out. And we had Chris Ackerley, who is now our acting treasurer in Pima County and our candidate for treasurer in Pima County. He talked to us about running clean or traditional, and he's a former legislator. So it was so exciting to see all these potential candidates. And we had school board candidates come out of that, legislative candidates. I mean, I can get so excited about what went on because we really did amazing things.
Yeah, that's, and you know, everything that you're sharing is, you know, this is what I think all of us want for the Republican Party. And ultimately, there's all these calls for unity, but I don't think that it's necessarily unity that we want. It's coming together and focusing on what we have in common. We don't want unity of mind necessarily. You know, we want to, you know, the party's never going to agree on everything. And one of the attributes of this whole, you know, they call themselves America First to distinguish themselves from everybody that they say is America Last, and that they call establishment, they call rhinos. And but they're enforcing purity tests on the party. And if you're not 100% in agreement and on my side, then you're the enemy and you're worse than a Democrat. And so, you know, and that's, and I've seen that here in Michigan. We see that very clearly in Maricopa County. And I'd like to, before we go further, we've had so many comments. I want to kind of get caught up on a few of them. Anastasia says there are a lot of Democrats who became Republicans and still act like Democrats. Is that something that you'd like to speak to?
Well, we did have people who were Democrats. And but Scott, I just want to say something, and I'm going to try and do this in 45 seconds. I think my sister's probably watching this. And I want to say this. When it comes to America First, nobody understands America First better than I do. We were raised in Panama, and our mother died in Panama, was buried in Panama. And when Omar Torrijos took over, when Jimmy Carter gave up the canal in 1978, my father was notified that my mother would need to be exhumed because all Americans, dead or alive, out of Panama. So you want to talk about America First? I understand America First. And so to say anything different, we all believe in America First.
Absolutely.
And Anastasia, I don't know how to say that last name, but she is correct. there are a lot of Democrats that came in and they acted like Democrats. We had one individual who we know pulled a ballot in the Democrat PPE in 2020, registered to become a Republican in November of 2020.
So hang on. So he pulled a Democrat PPE, so that meant that he intended to vote in the Democrat primary. And
he was a Democrat. He was a Democrat. He
But he
voted in the Democrat primary.
So he likely voted for Biden in 2020.
Likely.
Okay.
In January, in November, he changed over to a Republican. In February, he was appointed as a Republican precinct committeeman. And in March, he presented me with petitions, signature petitions, to remove the leadership of his legislative district.
That's just insane. I mean, that's exactly what we've been seeing.
Well, that is a Saul Alinsky tactic.
Right. Exactly. I mean, they're doing so much more harm to the party from within than they could ever do just by staying Democrats and not being involved. So Rayanne, thank you. Good morning. Love your podcast. Thank you. Amy says that's a fantastic statement in these times. I'm not sure. I apologize. I don't know which statement, but we've got a few comments from Eileen Wilson. She said, Mrs. Kais already has her facts wrong. Eileen Wilson, first vice chair, did not pass along flyers of who to vote for, nor did Kathleen Wishnick, the chairman. I don't know if that's.
So, okay. And that comment is from Eileen Wilson. They did not pass out flyers. They stood, and I'm sure Kathleen Wishnick would not deny this. They stood with a document. As a matter of fact, there are many people who were at that meeting who could probably log on right now and say that it did happen. They stood with a piece of paper and said vote. And Fran Mays, one of our PCs in what was then LD2, had about seven proxies at the time. And she and Kathleen had to stand in front of her holding that paper up so that she could fill all those out. And as a matter of fact, I believe we have a picture of that that I have not shared. I will go through my phone and I will ask some others and see, but I believe we have a picture of them doing that.
So yeah, we're getting, we've seen the left does this all the time where they argue something based on, as they say, it's not true because of semantics, essentially, where, yeah. So she also says, and you do not come to your LD19. Why is that, Shelley?
Well, I do not come to my LD19 because there's a number of reasons. One, I have been just under attack for so long. I'm in precinct 84, and precinct 84 meets every other month. And we have had numerous voter registrations. As a matter of fact, let's give a shout out to precinct 84. Since July, we have registered 202 people. Awesome. I believe, and we can talk about the lawsuit of which Eileen Wilson was a plaintiff against me when I was the chairman. But I mean, that can be where it is. But, you know, I want to back up for a minute and let's get back to the people, because I am excited, as you were surprised that we doubled the number of PCs in 22. And if you look here, now here we are in 24, and we had about 425 or so PCs go and get their 10 signatures. That is abysmal. We lost PCs. And then there were 100, I think it was 104 or so that went and became write-in candidates. Now, many of those write-in candidates were the results of some longtime Republican PCs who got on the phone and started calling their friends that they saw weren't going to be PCs anymore. Last week I talked to two people. One had been a precinct committeeman for over 40 years. She'd served in the state legislature. She'd served as a county elected official. She is no longer a PC. Another PC that we that was a huge activist and a campaign manager for so many people in Pima County. She is no longer a PC. And yesterday, I spoke to a former congressman and a I'm just going to say the founder of the Freedom Caucus in Washington D.C. And he told me he is no longer a PC. That is not how we're going to win elections. And so we need to get back together here. We need to start working. We need the excitement that we had. And I didn't even mention all of our board members. Annie Zaley, who was on for a few short months and just not long enough. She was amazing. She started up the PC training and did an exceptional job. Dion Hymick, who took her place. Pam Anderson, who was our secretary. We had a board that stayed together. We lost one member who went to become the chairman of the Small Business Commission of Pima County, and we were very excited for him to take that position. But it's all about the people. It's all about the people. And by the way, when we lost our secretary, one of our members at large moved up into that position. Pam Anderson kept beautiful notes for us. And then we went back to the list of candidates who had run in December of 2020, and we took the next person on the list. We took the person that was the next vote getter on the list because that was the voice of the PCs. That's who they wanted elected. I didn't put somebody I wanted. It would have been real easy for me to go pick a friend. But that's who was the next member, and a great member he was.
A few more comments, and then we're going to move on with our slides. Anastasia Sasaka, she confirms what you're saying. We've lost PCs and Republican voters in the last year, all due to complaints of infighting and other reasons. Why is that? So, I mean, first, the Republican voters, you shared with me before the call some data that you have about that.
Yeah. So, our first year, first off, let me just say this. In Pima County right now, our recorder is a Democrat, and even the Democrats didn't want her, but she got elected. And so we have all kinds of issues with our voter rolls. And for those of you who are listening somewhere on YouTube, and I don't know if I have this information, this YouTube video, but I testified before a joint commission on the voter integrity for 2020. We went out and we went door knocking. And for example, there was a voter registered 54 years old at one of the fraternities at the U of A. Now, you and I both know that's not true. We found empty lots with 10 voters registered at it. We found all kinds of stuff, but this was the most compelling piece. And I can't remember. I think it was like maybe December of 21 when I did this presentation before the Joint Commission. We found that the number of voters in Sells, Arizona was larger than the population. So I did the analysis. I went back and I pulled the census records. And I found that the census records actually indicated there weren't as many people as there were people that voted. So, we know we had big problems. So in our second year, our first year, we lost voters. And you know what? We lost voters all across the country. Because in 21, after the president lost, people said, that's it, I'm done. And so many people moved over to independent. Our second year, we started picking up voters. We started bringing voters back into the Republican Party. So I was very excited about that. Where we are right now is we've lost about almost 3,000 voters. Now, why is losing 3,000 voters important? So this is important for us to understand. And this is, I don't care if you're in Maricopa or Yavapai or Mojave or Navajo. And a shout out to all those chairmen that I served with, by the way. Those guys are amazing. Doesn't matter what county you're in. When you start losing votes, what happens when you lose Republican voters, you lose your allotment for PCs. Now, you know what? I must confess, we never got up to 15. I think our our PC allotment was 1,595. Bobby Joe, if I'm wrong on that, would you throw that up in the chat for Scott? But we never got even close to that. But what you want to do is you want to keep that number up, because that number, the number of PCs that you're authorized in the state, in the county, is directly related to the number of voters you have. So it's an indicator of the health of your organization. And that's what I want to talk about. That's why I'm here, Scott. I want to talk about the Arizona Republican Party becoming healthy and whole, and what we did in Pima County that gave us the ability to come out with these metrics of raising a lot of money, of having a large number of individual contributors, of increasing the number of precinct committeemen. And it took everybody in Pima County to make that happen. I mean, we had an amazing board that every third Thursday that we met, we put that out on Zoom. Anyone who was a PC could send in an email and request the Zoom link. And the Zoom link went out to anyone who requested it. And if you wanted to come down and sit through that meeting, you were more than welcome to. Because transparency is critical to success. Mm-hmm. So that's, are there any other questions? So I hope I answered that question. Why are we losing voters? I think we've lost voters because people, they're not embracing all the fighting, all the infighting. Look, we need to have a positive message. I was very fortunate as chairman. I got to go on the Wake Up Tucson show with Christy Simone every month. I got to go on a face-off with Bill Buckmaster every other week. And I went head to head with a Democrat, either the Democrat chairman, or if she wasn't available, with somebody else. And we hammered out the issues. Mm-hmm. And so I was very fortunate to be able to go on Bruce Ash's show and to get to be on a lot of different media. We actually, Pima County was very fortunate. We were featured in Politico a number of times. I was on NPR to discuss strategy there as well, because it's about building the Republican brand. That's what we're here to talk about.
That's right. Exactly. And there are so many, I would say just, I'm kind of trying to follow the feed, mostly listening to you, but I would say just pointing out that Anna Clark is doing battle with Eileen Wilson and Segal. And it looks like, but it's just that there was one comment that, that the party was really divided under your leadership. And I think that division is exactly what we're talking about here. It was like it was people that were trying to take over the party and overthrow the leadership of the party because you were effective.
Well, you know what? I'm going to let anybody who's listening to this, who is a member, is a PC in another county or even in Pima County, or if you're a state committeeman or a state delegate or a national delegate, I'm going to let these numbers speak the truth. So I'm just going to summarize it. We raised more money. We had more individual contributors. We had more PCs. We were more transparent. Our events, and Scott, just for a second, would you go to the next slide that shows all the events? I mean, look, you've got people all over the place here. We took a border tour. Mickey Nyland, the chairman of Maricopa County, when I was chairman of Pima, Mickey Nyland and I were the only two PCs, and people that showed up at the hearing when they tried to change the way that the PC allotment would be filled. We were the only two that showed up. Now, Anna Clark was there with us as well. But what you're seeing on that slide, you're seeing our board get brought in. You're seeing us with America's Sheriff, Mark Daniels, and Mark, and also, oh gosh, now his name is, let's see. Well, America's Sheriff, Mark Daniels, and Mark Lamb. Mm-hmm. Mark Lamb and Mark Daniels took us down to the border. That's the group of folks that went down to the border. As a matter of fact, all of the chairmen who might be listening or might hear this, they may remember that Pima County in April of 21, we suggested to Chairman Ward that she host the quarterly meeting down in Tucson. And she so graciously hosted that. We had an evening event where we could all get to know each other socially. We had Art Del Cueto come. Art talked about the border. The next morning, we all gathered for our meeting. We did the business of the party. And then that afternoon, we got on a bus and we went down to the border. And so someone who's living up in Navajo or Apache or Gila got a chance to go down and see what was going on at the border, how they stopped building the wall. And so, and by the way, Chairman Ward, to her credit, was able to continue those. So we got to go up to Prescott and learned about the issues up there in Prescott. It was just a great opportunity for us to begin to work together, seeing all those county chairmen work together. And so then what we did under the leadership of Lois Furworth, our county chairman at the time from Yavapai, is the county chairman started coming in early to the executive meetings, and we would meet together and we would share ideas about software to use, tools and techniques that we were using to try and get out the vote. We came together as a team. And we worked before any start of any AZRP meeting. We were working together as the county chairman. So a lot of great things really happened. But, we've talked about all the success, but there was a lot of fire. And we see that fire right now. I mean, why would you be talking about someone who's been gone hasn't served in office in political office now for a couple of years, but continues to serve her community as a commissioner. So, I mean, she's doing wonderful things. All of the people on that board worked so hard, and the numbers said it, and the numbers spoke to it.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking, just the case in point is just so clear. You're talking about success. You're talking about success for the party, for the whole party. And people are really melting down over it.
Well, okay. So Scott, would you please go to the next slide? Because I want to talk a little bit about us being under fire. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about being under fire, I already spoke to the fact that we had someone who came in, had been a Democrat, came in, changed to a Republican, and the next month showed up with a bunch of signatures on a petition saying we need to remove the leadership. Now, whether that leadership was effective or not wasn't the issue. Now, and by the way, they had done it wrong, so they weren't able to do it. But that is make your enemy live up to its own book of rules. So they tried to come to us and say, look, this says here that if we want to remove the chairman, what we need to do is come to you with this many signatures. And so they didn't read through the whole thing. So a good tactic is one your people enjoy. So how about let's have a meeting? Let's have a meeting, and everybody who is so angry about President Trump losing, let's gather them together. Let's get them fired up. Everybody can have a bite to eat. We'll hear from some speakers. And that's what actually happened. And we had a huge insurgence of the Patriot Party in Pima County.
I would say
that was a big deal.
The legislator that I spoke with last night said that she admitted that this is a direct quote, that the Patriot Party agrees with her. Steve Daniels was with her when she stormed the Vail School District. That's the type of good, a tactic that people really were getting into. We're talking about trying to overthrow the local government rather than work towards the electoral process, which is a consistent theme that we've been looking at everywhere. So we're two of these rules, and I really like the way that you did this. So we're talking about rule number 4 was make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. That's from Saul. These are from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Number 6 is a good tactic, is one that your people enjoy. Number 8 you have here is keep the pressure on. So
So I sent you, Scott, and I don't know if you're going to put it up in the notes or not, but I sent you 8 pages of Facebook attacks on me, because I don't, and there were attacks on other people as well. But and by the way, there's one that was really cute, and I even said this to somebody. It's a broom, and it looks like it's on fire, and it says, "Does anybody know a good auto mechanic? It appears that Shelley Kais's car broke down," insinuating, of course, that I'm a witch and ride a broom. I actually thought that was kind of cute. It's at least creative. But the attacks were specifically from one individual, and he was an individual that I would not sign his paperwork to be a PC. And I would not sign his paperwork to be a PC because he was collecting petitions for the Patriot Party. Now, after the Patriot Party petitions came out, we did have groups throughout the state that went and pulled each set of petitions for each county, and they went through and identified who are the PCs that signed the Patriot Party petitions. And so if you look at who signed them, it was really rather shocking. Mm-hmm. Now, what at the time then, they were trying to decide what to do. My thing was, I don't think we should be as concerned about the people who signed the front, but absolutely, if you signed the back of the petition, you should be removed from the party. And I would share with you, Scott, there are some people from Pima County that signed the back of the petition that should be removed. And one of them is my Facebook fighter. But people who signed it amazes me the number of people who say they didn't sign it, and yet when I can give the Bates number, which is the number which is assigned to the petition, I can give the Bates number and show where they signed it, and then compare it to their signature on other things, and they did sign it. So again, we have to just go back to that first point that I made, and that is, behold the truth, provide the proof. And yep. So we have all of that. Yep. But the other thing is, if you push a negative hard and deep enough, it'll break through till people believe it. And I think that's some of what has happened, is that people have heard that the party was divided. And you know what? If you talk to the 200 or 300 people that were at a picnic or a campaign kickoff or an election night watch party, you know what? They would say, I don't think it's divided. Mm-hmm. We've got more people. We've got more money. When we decided to put money towards working on Get Out the Vote, we had money to do that. So there are things that people will say, but we left them with no money. That you cannot prove that, because maybe there wasn't any money, but there were assets. So one of the bylaw requirements is that you do an audit. And the people on the board that I served on wanted a forensic audit, which means you touch every single piece of paper. And that is going to cost about $20,000. And we found a firm, and we paid that firm $20,000 to do it. That audit was canceled 3 days after the new administration took office. So if you want to say that we were improper with finances, then you should have let that audit go through, and you should have proved it. Yep. And the other thing, we left a $10,000 retainer with an attorney. That has also been pulled back. So there's $30,000 right there. But if you go to show me the money, you will see that they show $20,000. So you can't say that we didn't. But all of this information, I know it's 9:00, Scott, and we've covered a lot of territory. But if you go to info.republican, the lawsuit documents are up there, and that's a discussion. I mean, I can go on as long as you want, but the lawsuit is a discussion that we need to have with everybody in the state, because that lawsuit, which was never, by the way, never adjudicated by a judge, never adjudicated. It never went to a court of law where both sides were heard and a decision was made. Let's be really clear on that. That never happened. And so But what this is happening is in our LD3 and LD4, they are using that to try and change something. I'm not sure what. But I mean, I'll be happy to talk anything more. I feel like I've been talking a mile a minute.
Yeah, well, you have so much to share, and this is all really good. So I think that, while we have everybody here, let's go ahead and take a few minutes and talk about that lawsuit, because it is really important. The Triple Mom says, why is Shelley using lawfare against LD19? I think that there's a lot of that seems to me to be disinformation. Something that's completely.
Well, so Cheryl Caswell's point here, that I'm using lawfare against LD19. I am not. There have been no lawsuits filed against LD19. Cheryl Caswell, Eileen Wilson, Bobby Wilson, Ray Eiley, I forget who else were the plaintiffs, filed a lawsuit against the Pima County chairman, Shelley Kais. And that lawsuit is on info.republican. So Cheryl Caswell is incorrect. I have not used lawfare against LD19. However, I did file, along with Chairman Steve McEwen, I did file a campaign finance violation against LD19, who had never filed with the Arizona Secretary of State. We had no transparency of their funds. When Ray was the chairman of LD14, he never filed with the with the Arizona Secretary of State. So they were operating as clubs. They were not operating as components of the Arizona Republican Party. So yes, I found 8 different laws that had been violated, and I'd be happy to share that because Cheryl brought it up. I'll be happy to share that campaign finance violation that I filed. And it must have been accurate because in March of 2022, after the campaign finance violation was filed, Cheryl went and created an account for LD19 and began to file appropriately. And for that, I'm really grateful because we are the party of the rule of law. And so it's our job to do things correctly. We want our legislative districts to be successful. We want them to understand the filing requirements. And before I filed, by the way, I did check, and I knew that Cheryl had attended a treasurer's training class put on by Elijah Norton. And so I knew she understood the importance of that. So yeah, so that's not true. There's no lawsuits filed against LD19. That is not true. There is a campaign finance violation filed against LD19, but not a lawsuit.
I guess is this Cheryl Caswell here?
Yes, this is Cheryl Caswell. The complaint was all lies. If it was all lies, Cheryl, then you would not have filed with the Arizona Secretary of State in March of 2024. You would not have all of a sudden, you would not have created an account.
And Cheryl, if there is anything specifically, really, this is a statement to anyone who's out there. If there is anything specifically and material, of material importance that has been shared here that is untrue, please post it in the show notes with the evidence. You're welcome to contact me through my Substack or on Twitter at Bigger Truth. And also, Shelley, would you be willing to come back on the show and possibly even to have a debate if there's somebody, if the other side wants to put forward whoever they think their best person would be, and we could have a debate about the facts.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, Scott, let me just say this. I offered to do that shortly after the new administration took over. The chairman's wife wrote a letter to the Bustos Media, I think that's it, Bustos Media, asking them not to allow me to be on the radio. And she made the allegation that I was under financial investigation. And so I responded to all of that. My husband and I were most fortunate, Scott. We are so blessed. And in around the 1st of February, my husband and I left to go live in Italy for 3 months. And so I offered, the time frame before I was getting ready to go to Italy, I offered to go on the radio with the new chairman and actually his wife, who made the allegations, and to debate them. And I was told that they weren't interested in doing that. So I do have that letter that she wrote and my response to that letter up on info.republicans. So everything that I'm sharing with you today, you can either look at redrootsaz.org, which was what I said I was going to do, or you can look at info.republican, and you can see the documents and some. I don't have all those screenshots that I sent to you, Scott, but we can get those up there if you want. So, but do you want to talk about the lawsuit for just a minute?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to check the clock here and I'm going to go for 3 minutes. A lawsuit was filed in April of 22 against the Pima County Republican chairman. And the plaintiffs were, Shelley Kais was one of the plaintiffs, and also a board member, by the way. She was a board member of the Pima County Republican Party at the time that she filed a lawsuit. Eileen Wilson was also a precinct committeeman in LD19 at the time she filed the lawsuit against the chairman, and Bobby Wilson and many others. Their hypothesis was, or their allegation was, that I formed an illegal meeting. And so here's the deal. Again, you'll see this on info.republican. Chairman Ward said to me, Shelley, you have to form an LD19 that is within the boundaries of Pima County. It is not anything. A 5-county LD is a club. And as a matter of fact, at the state meeting, when Cheryl went up to try and speak to Chairman Ward to have her state committeeman recognized, Chairman Ward said, club leader Cheryl. And she referred to her as a club leader, not a legislative district chair. So all of that's up there. But what it amounts to is there are 2 purposes for a legislative district. There's a statutory purpose, and that is to elect a senator and 2 representatives. And there is a party purpose. And so the Arizona Republican Party is organized by counties. And in counties that have more than 500,000, we break it down by our legislative districts within the county boundaries. Now, Ray Eiley contended that he had the authority to call a meeting, and that the county has no authority to intervene in the issues of the legislative districts. And to Candace Sarney, who has been fighting this for so long, I would say, Candace, you are right. The county has no authority to intervene in legislative districts. The problem was there was no LD19. There was an LD14 and an LD2. And those 2 districts were being merged into LD19. But until there's a meeting and until the gavel drops and announces the new LD19, it is no LD19. So what Mickey Nyland and I did is we got together and we talked about, how do we do redistricting? How do we assist our legislative district leaders in merging under the new boundaries of these LDs? And so what we decided is that we would use meeting facilitators who would work with the LD chairmen who are involved in the merger. So in this case, it would have been 2 and 14. And they would work with them, and they would help each of the LD chairmen send out notices to their PCs saying to meet at a certain place, and we're going to establish the new legislative district. So we did not want to give any LD chair a heads up to, not a heads up, but an easier time at maybe getting elected, and they really had no authority. And so all we did was assist. Now, this worked in 29 LDs, except this new LD 19 with Ray Eiley, who said, absolutely not. He's the chairman of LD 14. He's going to call the meeting. And what's interesting is Ray had fewer PCs than Kathleen Wishnick, the LD 2 chairman. If anyone was going to take the lead on it, it should have been Kathleen. But interestingly enough, Kathleen was going to another LD. So that's why the meeting facilitator needed to be. And for those of you who are in LD 17 or LD 18, LD 20, LD 21, you had meeting facilitators come in and you got started and it was flawless. So, but everybody, there's a lot more that I could say about that, but I would encourage everyone to watch the video on info.republican and see what Kelly says about how we organize as a party.
Absolutely. And yeah, I could vouch. I think that's a pretty, it's a pretty good website. I mean, you've got a lot of information there that really spells this out. And it makes a lot of sense that, what you were doing there was not trying to give anyone an advantage, but the opposite. You were trying to create a level playing field so that this newly formed LD could decide for itself who was going to run it. And so that you were sued over that. The pattern of these disruptor type people suing other Republicans is something that's so prevalent all over the country. They're suing Republicans, and not just any Republicans, but people like yourself who are the most productive. And so, we talk here, this pushing a negative hard enough and deep enough, it will break through to into its counter side. And rule number 12, pick a target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. And you talk about using that to attack board members. And I think that's,
well, we just saw it here.
Right.
We saw it here. We saw people going back and attacking board members.
Mm-hmm. And we've been seeing it throughout these comments, people attacking you. So my camera just went off. Hang on, the battery died. Hang on.
Okay. Well, and again, the attacks, I'm not going to tell you that it's hurtful. I know, I think someone sent me a screenshot of someone who I think it's Lisa S. I think I know who it is. When they announced that my name was being withdrawn as a national delegate, some of these disruptors that we talk about in LD 19 and 18, because LD 18 is the LD, by the way, that has the Democrat, and LD 17. And these are people who wanted power and control. They started cheering. Okay, I'm not going to tell you that I've got a heart of steel, because I don't. That kind of behavior is hurtful. But when you want to talk about divisiveness, Scott, that's where it begins. When you've got behavior toward your fellow Republicans like that, when you've got, and as far as number 10 goes, I think we just saw an example of it when Cheryl said, why are you using lawfare against LD 19? Well, that's not true. I'm not using lawfare against LD 19. But if you keep saying something like that long enough, people will start to believe that I am the effing queen of evil. I think that's how you started the show today. And so anyway, I think that's the points that we need to make. And I'd just like to conclude, Scott, by saying, of course, thank you for giving me the opportunity to showcase the wonderful work that the board members that I served with accomplished in 21 and 22. And that all the precinct committeemen in 21 and 22 that were working hard to get Republicans elected did. Because here is what happened. Here's the rest of the story. We flipped a Democrat congressional seat, and we flipped it to an R. We got candidates elected from our little piece of LD 16. We have 3 candidates from LD 17 who work and live in Pima County. We have candidates from LD 19. we just were able to do great things. And unfortunately, now we're losing people, and it's all about the people. We don't have any candidates in LD18. We don't have any candidates in LD20. We only have one candidate in LD21. We aren't running anyone for the superintendent of education. We're not running anyone for county assessor. We're not running anyone for county attorney. And, you know, there's a shock jock named Garrett Lewis who accused me, who said on one of his radio shows that I should be held accountable for all the murders, rapes, burglaries, whatever, in Pima County because I did not run a candidate against Laura Conover. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was not the chairman when the race for Attorney General was run. But the race for Attorney General is running right now, and we do not have a Republican running against Laura Conover. And I would hope that Garrett Lewis would not say that about our chairman, that he should be responsible for the rapes and murders. Because we need people to stand up. We've lost candidates, we've lost PCs, we've lost donors. And you know what? Everybody, whether you're in Maricopa County, Santa Cruz County, Apache County, let's get together and let's rebuild our party. Let's get Republicans elected. Let's work for your candidate. Let's stop cheering when someone isn't going to go to the national convention. Let's stop fighting each other and let's work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, thank you so much for covering for me there while my camera died. I couldn't get back. But, that last thing that you said about cheering when you announced that you were not going to go to the, you were taking your hat out of the ring basically, for running for national committee or national delegate because of your health problems. And
well, wait. Health problems makes me sound like I'm not healthy. No.
Because
I'm super healthy.
Right.
Yeah, I broke my leg playing pickleball on January 20th, and I had a total fracture, so it came apart on the proximal tibia. I had surgery, and I am up and walking. I am much better, but my doctor advised me that it would not be a good idea to fly and then walk around a convention center for 3 days.
Sure. And, you know, the room, you know, and this is what, and I'll just kind of say it was Cheryl Caswell that called me last night, and she said, and her, you know, one of the main pieces of evidence that she was providing for you being the queen of evil, the effing queen of evil, is that you that everybody cheered when you announced that you didn't want to run for delegate. And I say shame on you. Shame on anyone who would cheer that someone that a hero really of the party does not want to is taking her name, that's not getting involved. I mean, that's not Republican. And you know, I everything that I've been seeing here from Cheryl Caswell, from the Wilsons, and we could probably have another hour just about the individuals that are involved in this, and maybe we will. But again, the call is out there. If you all want to put your best person forward, whether you think that's Dave Smith or whoever you think that might be, to try to, you can talk about the successes. I saw that from Raul, and I think that's a great idea. I would guess that, I know I would, any success that the party is having is worth celebrating. And so, you know, we can talk about the successes that the party has had or that they're claiming, and we can talk about that. And we can talk about the successes that Shelley's had. And this isn't about, you know, who's more successful. And I don't think that that's anything that Shelley's arguing at all. I think really what you've been arguing here, Shelley, is that that you were successful. And it's very clear that you have that your character has been assassinated. And that is wrong. That is objectively and definitively wrong. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that it's evil, it's slander. And that is exactly what Cheryl Caswell Ray Eiley, Justine Wadsack. That is what you have engaged in, and it's wrong. And you're not going to shut me up. You're not going to tell me personally that that you're going to make sure that I lose my credibility. I don't care what you think about my credibility. All I care about is what God thinks about me. And I'm going to continue to speak truth. And I'm going to continue to bring people on, especially people whose character is being assassinated by people who are trying to move the party farther and farther to the right. Whether you know it or not, whether this is your intention or not, in Pima County, you are moving the party farther and farther to the right in a blue district that is making it into an unelected, an unviable electoral alternative to the Democrats. And you are helping them by doing that, by enforcing purity tests, by pushing people out of the party, by making the meetings into something that a person like Shelley wouldn't want to attend. You are, and it's not just Shelley. It's obviously you've lost over 100 elected delegates. You've lost almost 3,000 Republicans, registered Republicans. So, if there are successes, we could talk about that, but there's a lot of failures that you're refusing to acknowledge. And it really starts with the division in the party that you're responsible for. So, I really encourage everyone there to take a hard look at, what you're doing. If you really want to unify the party, if you really want to bring the party together, then I think that you should extend an olive branch, and there should be some serious apologies, public apologies, made to Shelley for the way that she's been treated, because it's wrong. And I think, if whoever you'd like to come forward, I think you should start with that. And I'll make that my condition. You were welcome to have you, but you got to start with an apology for where you were wrong. So,
thank you, Scott. Thank you for saying that. I think that there have been some successes that we've seen. And so I know that Betsy Smith, who is I believe the national spokesman for the Police Association, and you can read the letter that she wrote about me being under financial investigation. But I think she pointed out that they have a new office. And one of our leaders in our party told me the other day that the new office is beautiful. And so, there are always successes. There were great successes, even amidst what people think was not a success at the state convention. There were good things that happened there the other day. I talked to someone, a state delegate, who said he networked with a bunch of people. He got to talk with a bunch of people. Let's just be honest. There's good things happening. Let's get rid of the bad. Let's start focusing on winning elections. We need strong leaders. We need strong leaders in the state of Arizona. And it's time for all strong leaders to put your name in the hat. Don't be afraid. And that's what I want. That is the message I want to leave everybody with today, Scott. Don't be afraid to put your name in the hat. I've got amazing friends that I'm going to go have lunch with in a couple of hours. I've got a fabulous family. And you know what? Don't be afraid to put your name in the hat. Take the attacks. As long as you know that you are doing what is right and what you believe to be right, then you got to keep going. So I encourage anyone who hears this today that is in Arizona, let's come together. Let's start working to get things done, because we only have two things to do: elect and re-elect Republicans and get out the vote. Let's do those two things. Let's put everything else aside. We can start the fight again on November 6th. Thank you so much, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, everyone, for joining and for all of your contributions. I'm sorry we didn't even get to 5% of the comments that were made, and so I appreciate what what everyone has shared. And I just completely echo that. I want to go back really briefly to what Solomon Yu, RNC committeeman from Oregon, said when I interviewed him last week. He said that the solution, really, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think this might be my word to describe what he was saying, is that what we need is statesmen. The solution is for our PCs and our delegates to become statesmen. And there's all this talk about the founding fathers and the American Revolution, but there's a lot of those people tend to not act anything like statesmen. And so that's what we're advocating. We are advocating open and honest debate letting down the name calling and the character assassination, and picking up, let's look at the evidence and let's go where the evidence leads us, and let's try to do what's right. Let's work out our issues, and let's say, okay, we're Americans, we're Republicans, we're not going to attack each other, we're not going to destroy each other. We're going to come out and we're just going to do the best that we can for our party and our country. And the left would not be attacking the Republican Party like this from within if the Republican Party weren't the best solution to all of our political problems. And so I just if everyone that is on here is a Republican, I just give so much thanks that you're here. And I think that everybody has good intentions, and I'm hoping that we can come together around that. So thanks again, Shelley. This has been great. And I really do hope to have you back on. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Scott.